Hi, Chad Jenkins here. Welcome to the CoLab podcast, where we uncover the art of collaboration and empower entrepreneurs all over the globe. When you think about vision and the vision of an entrepreneur, most specifically, when the entrepreneur starts out, I feel, and I've quantified it as, they all began with horizontal vision. And I'm not talking about not specifically talking about the entrepreneur who had gotten, seed funding, different rounds of funding, but that's even somewhat applicable. But I'm more specifically talking about the visionary entrepreneur who is starting out bootstrapping it. And the difference of them as they began to make some money and start to stand on their own 2 feet, so to speak, and began to add staff, that horizontal vision and leveraging the art of collaboration begins to narrow. And I've witnessed many entrepreneurs over the time we've been working together now as growth partners. You have an innate ability to widen that vision back out, to let them see more of the world, which I've seen manifest as their ability to create a lot more value. So what is there something specifically that you're able to see? And I know a lot of those folks, I for some reason, I have an ability to feel them, and that's probably because of the awareness of horizontal versus the narrowing focus of vertical vision, which is not bad, but it's not going to create exponential growth for them. It's also not going to create exponential value for whoever it is that they're serving. But whenever I pass them off to you, so to speak, is there something that you're seeing being common?
Yeah, so I'll go off one thought, and then if you have questions, fire it off. But
Sure.
Right away, I always go to my personal story to explain my understanding in terms of what you've showed me with regards to horizontal and vertical in terms of collaboration, but it could also be vision as well. I'm trained as an optometrist.
First and foremost.
It's first and foremost. Okay, so I knew since I was in grade 10. I wanted, and I loved helping people, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get into chiropractic, sports medicine, right? And then it was an optometrist that kept me interested whenever I go get my eyes checked, because I was the only one in the family that wore glasses.
Oh, wow.
And the fact that he kept me intrigued, at some point in grade 10, I thought, man, this guy sits in a dark room, helps people, talks to people all day long. I want to be an optometrist. So I made the decision, and now I set my vision that I will be an optometrist. Okay. Now, the key thing that I can explain back then, not only did I have a vision that I could see myself as an optometrist, but I could feel the fact that it was going to happen.
Oh, yes.
So already it was fueled, and it was unconscious at the time, but it was fueled with a want and a need and a desire. And I had the vision that for sure I was going to be an optometrist.
Yes.
Good. So then it happened. And now I'm an optometrist and an entrepreneur. They didn't teach us any business skills. Right? We just get thrown into business. And
here's your degree. Good luck.
Yeah, here's your degree. Good luck.
Wow.
And luckily I had my brother and my cousin, who one's a CFO, the other one's a CEO at the time, to give me business type concepts. And I would just do them because I had to have blind faith, because we weren't taught any of these things. But ultimately we're clinicians, but now we're business owners. Okay. So what's the vision of the future? I don't know. Successful practice. That's all I knew. Right. So as my story unfolded, and for the listeners, I have a child with cerebral palsy, and it was actually a colleague that came up to me and said we can help him with vision therapy, which is a subspecialty within optometry.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, this is interesting. And now I went to the States, because anything that could help my family, I'm all over it.
Sure.
So I started learning about vision therapy, which then gave me more understanding of my unique ability and what I do really, really well in a different context. Okay. So then that built the capability. So you talk VCR, vision, capability, and reach. So now my capability started to form, but to me it was all the same. I'm still an optometrist, right? Not necessarily. Okay. And the other thing that I came into was I have training in neurolinguistic programming, communication, language patterns, hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, all these other things that were of interest to me. And it helped me a lot when I would teach, because I taught at the university for 10 years, and how to communicate to the students
Yeah.
And that's all I used it for.
Oh, wow.
And again, another capability, but to me, I'm just an optometrist.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it wasn't in collaboration yet.
It wasn't in collaboration yet.
You had
Okay, so
vertical vision in each one of those, is what it says to me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, I didn't have vision of my own vertical vision. To me, it was just me.
Yeah.
It hadn't been created yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, story forward, I enter strategic coach and working with entrepreneurs and meeting you and other amazing entrepreneurs that are visionaries in their own rights and in their own world, which then gave me perspective on what I was doing in mine. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't really have an understanding of who I was.
Sure.
Right? Because I labeled myself as I am an optometrist. It's not who I am. It's my profession.
No, very true.
What I saw, who everybody else was,
mm-hmm.
and the reason I could see it is because I had it, but not realizing I had it.
Yeah.
So if I was inspired somehow in terms of what other people were doing, and because we're in a similar construct about thinking about things and thinking about life and thinking about personal and professional different aspects, it now gave me clarity, and this is where my vision started to open up a little.
Yeah, you started to get widened. Yeah.
This is the widening piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
The horizontal.
So now what else it made me realize? Here's the horizontal. It made me realize, I have confidence in who I am as an optometrist.
Mm-hmm.
And now I started seeing, wow, there's other people in this horizontal, and this is where the collaboration comes in, that can help my target hero market.
Correct.
And now I started seeing beyond me, because we're taught to be very independent in medicine. Now I started to see, holy jumping, if there's a consistent values and vision, now there's the collaboration that's forming that will allow me to see and get a much wide vision of what I'm capable of, because we're bringing other capabilities into the mix. So that's the horizontal.
So into the mix with collaboration to create something yet new, and sometimes never seen before, because there hadn't been intention to. I appreciate the point you made earlier. In medicine, you said we're taught to be individualist, not collaborations.
Never.
Good gracious. What
an
industry ripe for opportunity and evolution. I don't really like the word disruption, but for evolution. And who wins? You mentioned it earlier. The hero target, which for the ones that are listening that don't know what hero target means, it's who do you want your business to be a hero to? So we'll use that reference, originally coined by Dan Sullivan's Strategic Coach Program.
Yeah. And the just to give you again some background, it's changed quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I don't know if you want to get into different demographics, but the way that the youth think now, and what's available to them is totally different than when I grew up. Is totally different than my parents' generation. Okay, we need to be aware of that, because now you need to be where somebody's at and have an understanding of what makes them unique and where they are in terms of what we're talking about, because sometimes these principles are hard to grasp.
Oh, definitely.
So let me backtrack a second. So the way that we're taught from a medical model, okay, back then, is you need to get into medical optometry dental school. Okay, so it's competitive to begin with. And none of us really understand failure.
Mm-hmm.
Never happened, right? You need 90s, you need 90s plus. So not only are you going through school independently, but now there's a pressure of always being successful.
Yes.
And as you know, with entrepreneurs, the ones that are most successful are the ones that fail the most.
Yes,
right?
That's true.
So now you're going through this process in a competitive format, making sure that you beat everybody else.
Got it.
In terms of the marks.
Mm-hmm.
So we get into school, and now the residencies are the ones that are top of the class. Mm-hmm. So there's always this top of, but the learning is happening in a very structured standpoint, not from a what am I standpoint? What's the depth of what I bring into the mix here?
Yes, I can see what you mean.
So that's the individualized, compartmentalized piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then, at some point, and most of us have this, at some point, we're like, what's next? Right? So we're successful now. We're like the best optometrists. We're the best medical people and the best, but what's next?
Yeah.
And there's always something more. 99%, probably 99.9% of all medical professionals, when you ask them, why do you do what they do? Okay. It'll be something around contribution, right? Helping, making a difference and impact, or growth,
or
understanding.
Growth.
Yeah, education, deeper education.
But growth in confines of whatever the current conventions is, right? More and applicable to the vertical vision that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Your vision, like starting out, I need to do anything I can. I'm looking for ways to create value and to get started. Oh, now I'm making a little bit of money. Now, how do I scale this thing? Now, what are best practices, right? And then meeting, of course, I've seen many entrepreneurs begin to then think a little bit more horizontal and really looking at the world from a capability of what can I utilize? What can I do to create more value, both for those I serve and indirectly, ultimately, you'll receive more value yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And that what you just said in terms of how do we scale and take the value and get it to more people, it's not how we think. It's probably the most difficult concept for us to grab. Right? Because you have to remember, it's always being constricted to me and what I need to do and how I need to get there.
What it says in the book. So what is the convention? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I probably would never be a good optometrist in today's world.
Yeah, well, those of us that are successful, oh man, so many stories are coming up. Do I talk SDI? No, let me go this way. So in terms of the vertical,
yes,
what I realized, and again, trying to understand vertical in terms of collaboration, is what is someone doing that is better or at a higher level than I am, above me, and what's somebody doing that is as not as a high level. So, for example, a new grad that came out, as opposed to the top dog in the country type of thing. And I didn't have that awareness before. Okay, but here's what happened. When I started realizing what wisdom, what capabilities, what reach the person above me had, and also what wisdom, what capabilities, and what reach even the person below me had, now it became this look at it differently in terms of how does the teamwork make the dream work?
Correct.
Right? Yes. Well, that means that I need to understand what my dream is to begin with. Okay, not impact, right? So more people. As I started opening up my understanding in terms of collaboration, I also started understanding a vertical, and I think we talked about this before. So to make it visual, you have X and Y axis that's flat on the ground.
Sure.
Okay, so horizontal X axis tells me who else can support my target hero market that you're talking about. That and who can I support? Okay,
correct.
Hero target. And then the y-axis that goes up and down is who's doing what I'm doing at a higher level, who's doing it at a lower level.
Correct.
Well, I started seeing a z-axis. And what the z-axis was showing me is look at all of my own capabilities, and I see my vertical in all the things that I've achieved over my lifetime and career and personally. Okay? And then I started believing in all those capabilities so that I knew where can I meet the person that I'm going to be supporting, whoever they are, whether it's a collaboration, patient, friend, it doesn't matter.
Right. They're both the same, and honestly. You're creating value for them.
And we're in this three-dimensional model. Can we now create value from a three-dimensional perspective? So now, think vision now, right? How much can you take in when it's 1D, one-dimensional?
Right.
What happens when we're two-dimensional?
A big change.
Now what happens and how much movement can we create when it's three-dimensional?
Yeah, exponentially more.
Exponentially more. Yeah. So what's the key thing to do it? Number one, I need to understand myself first.
Always, so this is first and foremost. Yes.
Always. Who am I?
Yes.
The more I understand who I am, okay, and believe in who I am, now I have the capacity to see what is out there, who is out there, what and who are they with respect to where I'm at in this three-dimensional model. Now can be seen because we have a three-dimensional dream that's usually consistent. Otherwise, you won't be working with.
Sure enough. Yeah, attract each other.
Okay. And now, and we can go on this tangent, it's moved from a communication, right? Because sometimes you can't explain intangible things.
That's right.
To an authentic expression where now it's a much deeper connection and ideas start to flow, and this is where new models get created.
Yeah, I feel like that touches on where the third mind innovation that Carnegie, Ford, and Edison used to talk about and come together often, that they knew when they would come together and they were pointed in a similar direction with their thoughts, that they began to tap into the universe's creativity and wisdom, third mind innovation. At least that's what I now call it. I think they call it the third mind. And I I have to make things simple, so I call it TMI. It's the third mind innovation. But you're exactly right. The opportunity that we have when you actually look inside and begin to embrace what I have now coined your unique value contribution, only after you really look at yourself, which I do with entrepreneurs and their organization, so that, and you mentioned VCR earlier. VCR is by Dean Jackson, the VCR formula: vision, capability, and reach. Everyone has it, but not many remotely even try to inventory what they've been given innately with the relationships that they have, i.e. their reach, their ability to see ways to create value, i.e. their vision, and their capabilities. This is they've been training their brain since, best I can track, since about 8 years old. When I deal with entrepreneurs all over the world, it doesn't matter about country or continent or industry or level of education. When you start tracking it way back, somewhere south of 10 years old, they began to train their brain in and around their ability to create unique value and then contribute that through vision, capability, and reach. But only to the point that you begin to look and inspect yourself at that level can you then begin to see, and I love what you use, the authentic expression as your natural ability. You'll begin to see that in others. Then you're ready for collaboration. And then the world is ready for the value that you can really create, which has not been seen before, which is, as you mentioned, completely abstract in your industry that you came from, but not where you exist now.
So let me, oh man, you do this to me all the time.
Well, you've been here before.
I know. Okay, so let's make it real for the listeners in terms of what you mean by, tapping into universal,
creativity and wisdom.
Creativity and wisdom.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Who's listening has ever been in the shower? That's the clearest indication. Have you ever had anything come to you?
Yep.
When you're in the shower? Oh, great. That means you can do it. Now we just want to empower others where they can do it more frequently and they understand how this is happening. So please go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, so let's make it real, right? So it's exactly that. And we call this is actually vision, just so that the listeners can understand. Like, this is actual vision. A part of the visual pathway, neurologically, which I'll explain in a second, is called the tectopulvinar or the intuitive pathway.
The intuitive pathway.
And it's a non-sight pathway.
Okay. This is not the conventional wisdom that we all have as vision with our eyeballs. Sight.
So you can't see it per se. Like with the conventional, light hits the retina goes to the back of the occipital lobe. The occipital lobe then takes the information and changes light to electrical conduction and creates an image and so on and so forth. So it's not that pathway.
Okay.
This pathway, and again, I don't want to go too much into the anatomy of it, but it goes to the tectum. Okay, from the tectum, it goes to the pulvinar part of the right parietal lobe. Okay. And because it's a non-sight pathway, we call it the intuitive pathway. Okay. So now, in terms of the collaboration piece, where you're saying, okay, two people that have the same image or values or vision,
well, they're certainly pointing in the same direction, right? They have a lot of mission.
The same direction.
Yes.
Okay. Something, for example, if we're collaborating, something that you're going to say, or your capability, or what your vision is, or even people, or the reach component.
Yes.
You know that if it stimulates my tectopulvinar, my intuitive just kicks in, and I come up with an idea. I'm in a shower moment right now.
Okay, got it.
Okay, now holy jumping Chad, I just realized something. I don't know what this means for you, but and I come up with the idea and say it.
Got it.
Now, my tectopulvinar will stimulate your tectopulvinar, and you're like, what did you just say? Or what did you just do? Or what did I just experience?
It just comes to you, right?
It just comes to you.
Yeah.
So that shower moment, and it's like we're in the shower together. Okay, this is going to be X-rated, but
we'll pass on that one.
Both of us, we'll pass on that one. But it's two minds that are stimulated at that intuitive pathway level to create a much broader definition of what the vision is.
Yes.
And they're moving in a direction so that they can understand. Is that
collectively?
Okay?
Yeah, it makes good sense to me. Yeah. How much of I understand your breathing, which is a little hard. I mean, I can tell how you're breathing now if I'm intentionally focused on it, but innately your breathing begins to rhythmic the same. Your pulse, if you were able to check it, begins to be the same, your heartbeat. And ultimately, that is the coherence that you have between two. And that's truly where you begin to see this third mind evolve. And ultimately, as I mentioned, third mind innovations come from, for me at least.
Yes. Yes.
What's so interesting to me, and what I have now just become aware of, the certain groups, and I would dare say most folks that are listening are part of something. They're in community with someone, some group or body of someone's that are similar in nature, whether it be an association because of the industry that they're in, or it could be something more evolved. Vistage is one for CEOs around the world. Genius Network, Joe Polish's, awesome, one of the most awesome humans on the planet. I feel like most specifically, Genius Network, one could argue Abundance 360, and then the Supreme Strategic Coach. That's where you see like-mindedness begin to come together, and this evolution of innovation just runs at a rocket ship pace. Would you agree?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And largely based upon what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, let's see if I can put this into when, so you've heard the term rapport.
Of course.
Right? When you have rapport with someone, the easiest way to create rapport is to model and mirror the person that you're talking to.
Sure.
Okay. So whatever language pattern, the predicates that they're using, the way that they view their world.
Okay.
Breathing.
Yeah.
Body positioning. Okay.
Yes.
So your body language, modeling them is they're going to feel like they're being heard and understood and listened to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
One of the terms that one of my mentors, Dr. Sannett, always says is speak into their listening.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
Makes complete sense.
If somebody's very analytical and they use analytical language patterns, well, then you speak to them analytically.
Yeah.
Because then you're liked at an unconscious level, you're liked, and then you gain massive rapport, and that's where coherence begins, subconsciously.
Yeah. It makes good sense. Earlier today, I was talking to a good friend of both of ours, Steve French, and I shared with him my oldest daughter got me, I would dare say, the best gift ever for Father's Day recently, and it's Charles DeWitt, recent book, Super Communicators. And in that particular book, and I was sharing this with him as well because it's most applicable to what we're talking about, there's 3 types of conversation: emotional, social, and decision. And it happens in every conversation. And through Intuit, or you intuitively pick up on, are we trying to make a decision? Do you just need a hug? Do you just need to be heard? Or is it social? Or I'm just listening and it's kind of us, not against them, but in relationship to them. And the more, to your most clear point earlier, when you're speaking to their listening, when I understand quickly that this is a decision conversation, which is not common with my lovely bride, it's more sometimes of an emotional conversation. I understand some of your high-end schools teach teachers that you either need to be heard, you need to be hugged, or you need help. So heard, helped, and hugged. And the quicker that they are able to pick up on that, then the students themselves understand and they can learn at, I believe the statistic was 37 or 42% faster than some that do not use those methods. So why in the world wouldn't it work? And to your point, you're making a confirmation that it does at the entrepreneurial level, the CEO level, and the organizational level. And just being empowered, this type of information I've seen have an exponential impact on the relationships I have with entrepreneurs all over the planet. So, yeah, very good.
The thing, I mean, we're obviously oversimplifying it because there's a lot of other factors that get involved. And to speak into somebody's listening isn't just, again, this is predicates, right? Or deeper understanding of where they're at in the moment. And this is a big thing that you always say is meet them where they're at.
Have to, yes.
Now, in terms of meeting them where they're at, there's different levels of understanding the person. And back to what we said before, the more I understand myself, the more I
I'm
can
good to
make
see you.
assumptions where they're at,
Yes.
communicate where they're at, pay attention to their behavior and response to say, am I actually connecting with them? Okay. And if you are, you continue that depth of conversation until then it becomes flow or, a meaningful conversation, I'll call it for now.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that is very common that I see with entrepreneurs, and I mean, it's a human developmental thing, but we have emotional development that's a part of who we're becoming, that is a survival mechanism that supports us in life.
Okay.
Okay.
I can see
And
that.
sometimes the story that's been built up will either take us down.
Sure. Hold us back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold us back.
Yeah.
Or we become neutral and just stay there, or it gives us fuel to go, screw it, I'm going to do this, watch what I'm going to do and how many people I can affect and so on and so forth, because I don't want the target mark to go through what I went through.
Sure.
Example.
Yeah.
Okay. So I always say everybody has a story.
Oh yeah, of course.
And I find the deeper the story, the more potential that's there. When you go levels of understanding in terms of what type of questions do we ask? Okay, and I'll go to strategic coach because it's going to be a good example for the listeners to understand what is it that we get in that type of an environment.
Yes.
Well, it's not answers and it's not just telling what's happening, right? It's a structured way of allowing you to think about your thinking.
Yes.
Okay, so shower moments included.
Yeah.
Where you get these ahas, and then every hour we have the capacity to share those thoughts, which then stimulates the tectopulvin on someone else.
Yes.
And then you hear their thinking about their thinking, which then triggers an idea. Okay.
Wow. That makes so much sense. Because you can
once
see their
that
eyeballs light up when this happens.
That's why the light's on. I mean, it's like once you see the light on, it usually turns your light on too, because it's like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen.
Right.
That's the moment of coherence.
Coherence between the individuals and also coherence with the person.
Coherence.
Inside of them.
So, okay, now you're going to get me excited. All
Sure.
right. So I'm going to give you some inside scoop on what we do as optometrists to pick up coherence when we're shining light in the eye.
Okay.
So there's a tool that we have, a piece of equipment called a retinoscope.
Okay.
Now what a retinoscope does is it refracts light so that we can pretty well manually tell what somebody's prescription is. So when we're seeing a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 2-month, 3-month, 4-month-old baby,
yes.
We don't need the which is better 1 or 2 response. We know what the prescription is already.
Interesting. A little tough to read the chart at that age.
Yeah. So a retinoscope determines prescription. Now, as a neurovisual optometrist, we don't look at what the prescription is. We look to see how bright the reflex is. Because when there's internal coherence and the brain turns on, the light gets brighter. The reflection of the light gets brighter.
Really?
So
wow.
When you say, I see the light turn on in someone,
Absolutely.
It's not just the retina that turns on. Their whole body looks different.
Absolutely.
Okay? It's just that most of us aren't in that awareness to pick it up.
Yeah. I completely agree. I've been in breakout groups and just driven by my natural curiosity and no formal education around business. I'm constantly truly listening to what they're saying in their breakouts. And immediately, for me, I think it's kind of just the way my brain works. I'm running thousands of combinations of value creation through what they're saying, through who's in the room, etc., all kind of environmental factors. And then I share it with them. And at the time in which I share it with them, I see the light come on.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about it that particular way, but obviously there's a scientific background to it that's producing it. Thank you for empowering me.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of your unique ability, right? It's just sometimes it's nice because I know you well enough now that I can express it in a way, right? Because to put it in words is difficult, but this is now deepening your idea of what your capabilities are, okay, and how you bring your vertical capabilities to allow everyone else's vision to be clearer, that we can't necessarily see because we're in our space. And you have to remember, our space also comes with the negative emotions, the limiting decisions, all these things that we're not necessarily aware of. But you put anybody in an environment And I don't want to use the word safety, but it does. Like in strategic coach, seeing and growing every quarter, seeing the same people every quarter, building the relationship every quarter, thinking about your thinking every quarter, having time away from the noise, which
Yes.
is another key ingredient.
Yes.
Okay, all these things allow, again, belief in understanding self, but then being in an environment that allows the coherence to happen, not just with other people, but also with other things, and more importantly, coherence within yourself.
Yeah, within yourself. Absolutely. And that, I would dare say that manifests as courage. They take the first step now with the vision that they've received. In an example that I gave earlier, the breakout, where I can see, good gracious, your capabilities combined with his capabilities create something completely brand new. And both of you are already doing it. You just haven't remotely considered horizontal vision to create collaboration to wipe out the competition. But it gives them the courage in that environment. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So now I have a question for you.
Sure.
This sounds like common sense. My question is, what percentage don't follow through on what you see? Is question number one. And question number two is, why do you think that is?
I'll give you a one-word answer, and then I'll back it up. Energy is the first. Friction is, I would argue, energy is the catalyst. They don't have that supported energy, incoherence from someone else, potentially the one that had the original vision. And awareness of that friction is what led me to create SeedSpark Growth Partners, where we partner on the outcome, right? Because I don't have remote interest in building many, many organizations as I have done in my past, though I enjoy it so much to help build those organizations. And they have capabilities. Some of them have reach, but they don't have vision. And without horizontal vision, they can't see the opportunities that lay right in front of them to help reach their objectives or their goals or the next milestone that they envision for themselves. So yeah, that, I know it's kind of a long answer, but when they go out of that environment and lose that coherence, and they lack the energy of someone supporting them so they can reach, then take that courage and put it in action, they go back home to their offices.
Yeah.
And they're surrounded by folks that, one, they didn't possess that vision in the first place. Then no one around them is being impacted by that vision. Therefore, they can't get aligned to that vision. And without the energy to support it, it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. And that's what led me to give them support multiple times a month, the Friction Fuel Forum that I do twice a month, so that they can always come back and get that catalyst of energy and the expansion of the vision through engagements and collaborations with you and others that you're engaged with, just to support them and really see them catapult to what they actually can be. It's so rewarding to see it happen too, even from the point that you see the light turn on. You got to support that light though. Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking you, because it's one of the things that we're is, I think, part of our mutual unique abilities is that I think we're both good at reframing the frictions in such a way to see how does their potential show up with why that friction is there to begin with, right? And then when you explain the three different types of frictions, it really cleared things up for me in saying, premium friction is where the gold is for me.
Yes, of course.
And it gives me an indication of what my potential is in terms of what's possible. And now I'm surrounded by other people with similar potentials. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, indeed.
Right. And anyways, I just thought I'd throw it out there because
it's interesting that you say that earlier, but what's creating the third mind innovation through the coherence of us two. And we've kind of unpacked what it is and how it's happening. But if you take it just a little deeper, engage collaboratively, helping an entrepreneur, you're able to, and of course with all the education and training and certification, just the diligence that you put toward being well beyond an optometrist, and I would argue well beyond neurovisual specialist, you're able to support them as the individual to reach back into that past and to truly reframe not to you, but for you. And it's their idea once they, of course, take that level of reflection. And then combined with, sure, I would argue my unique ability, or what I would say applicable is unique value contribution, is the ability to see what all opportunities exist, I would argue, right in front of them that are invisible until they're opened up to be able to leverage that level of vision. So the combination is exponential growth. And we've seen it happen time and time again. So it's not, and now if you look back at the reference I gave much earlier in our conversation of Edison, Ford, and Firestone, the entrepreneur that we're working with, or I would say the entrepreneurs, because collectively we have tons and tons of entrepreneurs that we're both supporting in our own right, of course. We're seeing a third mind innovation from that, because as they level up to the coherence of vibrating, you could argue, at that level, both in mind, body, and spirit, they're starting to see things they've never seen before. And they're not only starting to see them in their organization or themselves, but also in others outside of the collaboration between us. Yeah. And that's when the real fun and magic begins to happen. Yes. Yeah.
The way, another analogy would be, I use the radio station in terms of frequency.
Okay.
Right? Because sometimes it's hard to grasp concepts that are not necessarily
that you can't just reach out and touch. Sure.
You can't just reach out and grasp, right?
The simple stuff existing in our world, physical.
If I have my station set at 88.1,
yes,
I hear 88.1.
Sure. All the time.
Okay, so all the time. So if I'm communicating with you and you're on 88.1, it's like, hey, same song's on. Can you hear it? Yeah, we can sing together. We're good.
Yeah.
Okay. But something in me makes me realize I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to experience something different.
Mm-hmm.
And as I do it, I'm like, I have flexibility now where I can reach all the way to 102.1.
Yes.
So I turn 102.1 on. I'm like, this is unbelievable, right? So I say, Chad, can you hear this?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what are you talking about? And you're stuck in 88.1.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, do this, and you'll be able to hear 102.1. It's like, that's too much work.
Sure.
I miss you. Come down to 88.1.
Yeah.
And you're alone in 102.1 thinking, okay, let me be more social. I got to go back to 88.1. So you go to 88.1. I'm like, why am I listening to this stuff? So you go back to 102.1. And then you start realizing that there's a horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other people that are listening to 102.1. And you're like, wow, listen to the music. This is great.
Yes.
Right? And now the person in 88.1 is saying, wow, all of our friends and everybody's in 102.1. So either they move up to 102.1 or they're just happy in 88.1. We're good.
And the relationship is not the same as it was.
It wasn't. And there's less people listening to 102.1. Now, the curiosity with the entrepreneurs going, if there's a 102.1,
how much
what's
is
the
there?
highest?
Yes,
I want
exactly.
a 107.9 here.
Yeah.
Okay, but to get to 107.9 is a lot of steeper curve and there's less people on the road.
Sure enough. Yeah.
Okay. And as you go up in frequency, yes, there's different capabilities there too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you meet less people with massive expansiveness in terms of what their capabilities are that nobody else understands because they're not listening to the same radio stations. And we hope that everybody gets it.
Yeah.
But you can't. Okay. But the second you get to that pinnacle, even though there's less people there, now you can, what's the word where, broadcast. You broadcast the messages.
Correct.
In ways that everyone can hear.
Yes.
But only certain people will choose to listen in the whole system.
That makes complete sense. Yeah. I've never heard that analogy, but yeah, of course it does to me. When I'm going to call it ultra local, starting many businesses in the local market, Charlotte, North Carolina specifically. I have hundreds and hundreds of awesome entrepreneurial clients that I value so much, and they've just been so kind to me over the years. Until I began to expand all over the planet, I had no idea there were folks out there that wanted to vibrate at the radio station that I was already listening to. I am in search of them. I feel like now I am heavily attracting or magnetizing them, and it's so rewarding, because what it enables and empowers me to do is, I would dare say, if it's not daily, and you could certainly ask my innovation manager and the rest of my team, those wonderful and poor souls at the same time, just having to keep up with the creativity and the awareness that I have of identifying ways that I would argue are right in front of us all to create that exponential growth that every entrepreneur wants. I never have met one that said, you know what, I'd really like to reduce my top line revenue or my net profit by 20% this year, ever. So they're searching for it, but they're doing the same thing, and they're thinking the same way, and they're hanging out with the same folks, and they're maybe even doing best practices, but we all know that's an indication of average. So they always have so much more capabilities to reach further, and there are people on the planet that are already listening to 107.9, right? They're already vibrating at that level. So if you take anything away from our time together today for listening, be in constant search for those who are already tuned into the frequency that you seek, the operational level, the thinking, and the ability. Because if you find them, and if you would open your eyes to possibly collaborate with them, all your dreams and wants are just a short little distance away from where you are currently. But it does take that step, the 4 C's, and we've spoken a little bit about strategic coach on the call. The 4 C's developed by Dan first starts courage. You got to have the courage. What gives you courage?
Commitment.
I'm sorry, commitment, of course, and the courage, of course, to take that first step.
Yes.
And then ultimately the confidence, and then just on and on. So finding those out there that are vibrating like you is paramount to the success that you actually have the ability to reach.
Yeah, and if I'll share a story. Are we in closing soon, or?
Oh, very soon. Yeah.
I think the timing is going to be perfect. So, in terms of the broadcasting that I mentioned before, so that it's here's this pinnacle of like-minded individuals, or in the case of a strategic coach, you mentioned Genius Network, and the connection I have with Joe Polish is amazing.
Yes.
And it happened in a group full of the entrepreneurs in a group called Free Zone in Strategic Coach. And I'm like, what is this Free Zone? It's like, well, it's a bunch of people come up with ideas and models that haven't been created yet. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's interesting. So, and I'm going to explain the story to understand, here's a new model and the difference in the broadcasting and how the broadcasting gets created from a 1.79 level. So you invited me to go to Free Zone in West Palm Beach, and I thought, what am I doing down there? Because it's overwhelming being around this depth of thinkers and creating different models. And not only, 107.9, but actually seeing backstage the broadcasting that's happening within the 107.9. So you mentioned dream. My dream is to see my child walk. Mm-hmm. Okay, like it's been that way from day one. I can visualize it. I'm emotionally connected to it. He has cerebral palsy. Somebody's going to tell me that he's never going to walk the rest of his life. I don't agree. So here's this dream that I go in with a bunch of entrepreneurs that are different thinkers, and I find out that one of the entrepreneurs discovered a technique to grow hearts.
Yes, yeah.
And from stem cells. So, right? Yeah. So here's HeartWorks that creates, artificial hearts from stem cells of the skin of the child. And I said to him, please tell me that you do brain tissue as well. And he asked me, well, it's not our space, but there's companies that do it now. Why? And I said, my dream is to see my child walk, and cerebral palsy is damage in the neurological tissue or nerve cells. And he says, you might want to change that dream to a goal because it's here now. And the world stopped, right? Because this is unbelievable. Well, actually, what day is today?
17th or 18th.
Thursday? Yeah, tomorrow is going to be our first appointment to see the candidacy level to move in the direction of
with David Hasse or Dr. Hasse.
Who's also in Strategic Coach with us.
Absolutely. So I just talked to him this morning.
It's a perfect example of here's other capabilities, a vision of what I see of what's possible, and then other people showing up that are actually creating a reality of a dream that now is goal, and who knows what the next steps are going to be, but obviously I'm going to share it with you, and hopefully it gives the listener, the main learning here is dream big dreams.
Yes.
Okay. clarity of vision, in order for that to happen, be around other people that you have coherence with to then create your reality of what's possible.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Truly awesome. Yeah, I absolutely hope it's inspiring to some. They have so many more capabilities and opportunities to reach whatever they can dream up. More in the shower moments, and maybe not with others in the shower, but with others who are looking for those outcomes as well, because they exist on the planet. An exact example, and have the true experience of that now, of course. The last 4 years has been truly amazing to be around folks that think similarly, and that I can leverage my unique value contribution and help them reach their dreams. And thanks for all the help that you've given me to begin to multiply that capability across the planet.
Thank you too, Chad.
Yeah, man.
Love it every second. Yeah. We appreciate you.
Yeah, we'll do this again. Okay. As always, I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Chad.
Best of luck to you. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.